We have a quorum. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:05, August 22nd, 2022, special budget workshop meeting. Citizens' comments. I think the lady that was in here wanted to comment. Want to go get her? You recognize you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And, I just want to thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to speak. And, I had a visit with Jack Martin this morning. I visited with Jack Martin this morning, and, he's doing everything he can to get county to answer our calls.
Oh, okay.
But he's down to just one or two deputies a night. He's lucky if he has one a night. And we understand that county cannot cover from I-30 all the way down to the south end, not with just one person. And I'm asking you to reconsider and please give us one more officer. That's all I've asked for. If you have to raise our taxes, then so be it, because our state and federal taxes is going up anyway. And they didn't give us a choice. I mean, honestly, they didn't give us a choice. But if it will keep the city of Lone Star afloat to where we don't go under and we can afford one more officer, please raise our taxes. I'm willing to pay. And anybody else, well, they ain't gonna complain about it, because if they were worried about their taxes, they would be here. I don't see none of them coming down here. And I'm just being honest. Raise our taxes. You don't have to, you ain't got no other choice, or the city of Lone Star is going under anyway.
I appreciate your comments.
Because our state and our federal taxes is skyrocketing. And it's fixing to go higher due to the $5 billion you don't have to pay your school loan back. So please raise our taxes. That's all I'm asking. Raise our taxes so we can have one more officer. We don't mind paying extra taxes. But we do care about our protection and safety. We should not have to lay in bed at night and pray before we go to sleep, praying that we don't have to shoot someone that's coming in our household. Because I will do whatever measure I have to take to protect my baby girl in my house. And it could all be prevented if we have one more officer. If Lone Star PD has what they need to protect the citizens. Our safety is more important than a tax.
I'm going to make a comment when you sit down.
And that's all I'm asking.
Okay. I'm going to have to move forward with the meeting now. We are, I think, for sure, all of us are about safety, about protecting our families. We are pro-cop all the way. Through the years, we sent the guys to SWAT school. We had a SWAT training team in the county. If anything happened at a location and required some very vigorous response, our guys were going to be the ones going in. I understand your concerns. we'll definitely try to address them. We're always about bettering ourselves. And we don't take your comments lightly at all. We are gonna go through, council, continue to go through the numbers. Tina and I have been in contact constantly the last few days.
Oh, that's all for comments?
Oh, did you have comments?
Yeah, I thought y'all was saying the lady was going first.
Okay, well, go ahead, Travis, if you.
Yeah. Well, y'all know me, most of you do. I tell you how I feel, the way it should be. I think the Lone Star Police Department should walk out and protest if you don't give them another officer. If you don't support them, if you don't support our police officers, you don't support the citizens of this city. That's like you're sitting here not even looking at her or me talk. You're looking at papers. You had a fourth officer on Lone Star Police Department until he broke his oath. You wasn't gonna fire that officer or let him go last year. He was still gonna be here. Where'd the money go that you was gonna pay that officer? I'm serious. If they do not give you another officer and a pay raise that you deserve, you should walk out and protest. Cause they sit here and tell you they support you and all that, but that's BS. They don't support you. You know me from way back. I'll tell you how it is. If you're doing something wrong, I'm gonna be on you. If you're not, I'm here supporting you without anybody asking me to come up here because I believe in the law enforcement. They sit here and say they ain't got no money. That's BS. They're lying to you. They're lying to that officer and they're lying to the other officer. They can sit here and say they support you. No, they don't. If they supported you, you would get that officer, you would get that pay raise, and the people in the Edgemont district would have police coverage after 12 o'clock. That's no disrespect to you, and I'm not being confrontational. It ain't my fault nobody else is up here but me and this lady and Mr. Reader. But walk out and protest, because seriously, they can sit here and blow smoke up your behind, but they don't support you. Thank
We've
you.
got the people to do it. If we have to walk and protest in Spring Heights over in East Springs, or wherever it takes.
Thank you for your comments about Mrs. Long. Walk us through all that we talked about this week.
Your top sheet, you're gonna see that there's option 7, which includes the rate increases that were discussed, with the exception of a couple of modifications. I chose not to take the 5% that was offered. I put 2% for myself, so that way the other increases can be issued for our public works and for our chief. I've included those calculations over to the side so that y'all can see those. As far as the budget,
Next page.
I was able to go back in and try to figure out why our numbers were so weird, so out of kilter. I did find comparing data back to 2012 on up to the current date. There was some information with the payroll and things of that type that had to be changed and updated. I have trimmed as much fat off of the budget that I possibly can to be functional within the general fund. You can't concretely identify things because we don't know from one day to the next what's gonna come in tax-wise or any other miscellaneous income, but we can always depend upon expenses coming in. I'm not gonna go through each one of the individual items. Y'all have seen this packet multiple times. This time it's reduced down quite significantly. However, your bottom line number is showing to not be where we need to be.
What page are you now for?
That would be on page 5.
Did I miss something from the previous meeting? Did you hand out something from the previous meeting?
Yes, we continue to look at numbers and make changes.
Okay,
So the one that you have tonight is the relevant one.
okay.
The previous numbers were quite higher than that in the red.
Okay.
You will also see, based upon conversations, discussions, evaluating numbers, these numbers are as true as I can get. I pulled these, even though this recaps up to 9 months, based upon these numbers, based upon the standard procedure of calculating for a 9-month period, I've reached out until today's date just to make sure the numbers were somewhat still comparable, and they are. The numbers that you've got are as close as what we've got today on our expenses and on our income on general fund. So, it's not including this. No. It is not, because we can't vote on that tonight.
I understand. I'll just send it as a model.
Yeah, so you will notice, in your second packet above beyond the general fund, there is, a proposed amount of spreadsheets that gives different calculations for the event of an increased water and sewer rate. I did some checking, we did our, in 2020, the residential rate was raised by $1, and the commercial rate was raised in 2019 on your base fee, but based upon what we researched out, your individual usage had not increased, and there's a proposal, the first page on those water and sewer rates is just kind of a quick recap. We called around, tried to get an idea what the surrounding cities were charging, and Dangerfield was unable to provide us numbers right now because they're doing like I've been doing for the last 4 weeks, is trying to figure out a budget. But you can tell by looking at the minimum bill column on the water and sewer rates, Lone Star is not the cheapest, Hugh Springs is, but we're the next to the cheapest in comparison to other cities. Hugh Springs is going to increase theirs 4%. Omaha is gonna have a 3% increase, and Naples has already increased theirs, their base fee, their flat rate fee. And you compare those numbers at the rate per thousand, some of them are higher than our rates per thousand are after the base fee. All of these attached sheets that's got highlights, these are proposals that to be considered. We can't vote on anything tonight. This will be on the agenda at our next meeting, but based upon what we're seeing historically, based upon the USDA on the water and sewer side of things, which we'll get into on that, we are going to have an increase of some type on our water and sewer rates. There's various rates for inside city limits, there's rates for outside city limits, there's commercial limits, and there's residential limits. Each one of those have been supplied at a 5, 8, and 10% increase. It's my understanding, and for whatever reasons, I don't know, but apparently for the years in the past on sewer, we've never charged anything over 10,000 gallons. And 10,000 gallons is our max, but just out of grins, I went ahead and put the additional dollar amount as far as, and that looks like that. Don't look at the sewer rates on the commercial inside. When I moved that, it took the values off for some reason. I've been looking at too many numbers, didn't catch it. On each one of those when I split them off on the rest. So I've got to rerun those. So I'll get y'all the back copies on that. But if you look back on the commercial side of it, on the back side, fourth page back, it's got values for above the 10,000, and the second page has the correct values for the 10,000 and above. The first and third page does not, the formula got changed out. There's a summary of up to 20,000 on your water rates. There are some people that go above and beyond 20,000. This was just a baseline to calculate from. The items I highlighted in orange are current rates right now for every additional 1,000. When we get to the point in time to discuss this further, we may need to discuss to that level, how much it's gonna be per additional 1,000, and also if there's gonna be an increase. But that's, like I said, that'll be discussed at our next agenda meeting, next council meeting. As far as on the water and sewer, I have tweaked, I have modified, I have done absolutely everything I can based upon historical data, based upon current income, speculated income, and expenses. And again, it is not in the black. So I present you the numbers as they are as of right now. I don't know what else we're gonna do. Looking at the water and sewer, historically, what I have found is we did not build enough of income put back to offset the USDA expenses. And, you know, we've got a calculated, based on the next month, 2 months, we've got about $200,000 that's gonna be going out on just interest alone. That's cumulative total for the fiscal year. Can't say anything else about it because the numbers have been changed. I've tweaked it to where from the last time to where I've got it down like another 10,000, but that's it. Shane and I were talking about the USDA values. If I took the $200,000 interest off and I ran that today, and you would be 87 in the red, not 287. I have compared these to previous spreadsheets dated back to 2012. There's not been any modifications to formulas. This comes directly out of QuickBooks. The formulas are calculated by QuickBooks. And you can't expend more than you have money coming in, and that's basically what has happened. If y'all have any suggestions on things, like I said, I've trimmed fat as much as I could. I've looked at the real numbers as to where we are to current date, and the numbers that I've published in here as far as on the 2022-23 budget are numbers that we basically have to have to meet those individual line items. Hopefully some of the income numbers will increase, but we can't know from 2022-23 with, you know, maybe we'll have some more tapping fees and things of that type to come in. But Shane had asked me not to depend upon tapping fees because the one tapping fee that we have for that 9-month recap is just that, it's one tapping fee for the year of the 9 months that we have. He said, don't put too much emphasis on things of that type on miscellaneous income coming in because you may not have it.
It's not gonna be a tiebreaker anyway.
You know, a couple $100 here and there is not gonna be a breaker. If anybody sees anything that looks questionable, I can pull the numbers up in the computer. I've gone back and forth over the numbers. we need one of those money trees to help us out, I guess. I did talk to Miss Ruth and talk to her about the fact of the values coming directly out of QuickBooks, and she's agreed that if that's where they're coming from, based on the calculations, the formulas and things of that type, then they would be correct. The only thing that might be questionable on any of these numbers would be the ones at the bottom of page 3 and 4, which would be those add-ins. And the reason why, like in 2020 and 2021, the budget looked so good at $394,000 was because we had a 300 something, let's see. We had the monies to come in for the grants and for the fire truck, all that money shows up. It's the next year when you don't have that padding to show up. Even though those monies came in, it wasn't for water and sewer budget. It was for specific items. And if you look at, in comparison to the final, on page 3 of the water and sewer bill, of the water and sewer budget, if you look at your final values from October 19th to September the 20th, you were negative 86.5 at that time. The only positive that you show will be the 2021, and like I said, that's money being captured with the budget, with the monies coming in from the CDBG and the fire truck. That 273.5 is the fire truck money. As far as, something that's been brought up already, the policeman that we had previously, was offset with the new policeman at a comparable rate. The water and sewer guy that we had previously was replaced with another water and sewer guy at a comparable rate. So the monies that would have been available for those two positions was taken up by replacement at within just a few cents per hour rate difference. There has also been a court clerk hired at full-time instead of part-time, so those types of monies adds up on the general fund side and the water and sewer side because they both pay a portion of that. That's all I can say about it. It is what it is.
Thank you so much. Worked very hard on it.
So is there, I mean, we're talking numbers here, but was there any other reason why we took the 4th officer off of this? We were talking the other night, I thought we had
We took it off of this one because we're already in the red before you consider a 4th officer.
Can I ask this question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you said we already agreed. Okay, if these officers have to work 12 hours, after 8 hours, those 4 hours is overtime.
Yes, ma'am.
So some of them gonna be making much as $30-something an hour. Then we can hire, whatever.
After an 80-hour pay period, Ms. Sherry. If they work 12 hours in the first 2 or 3 days in 1 week, and then they work the 8-hour shift the next week, if they stay.
Well, if they don't have no help, it's gonna be 12 hours every week.
Understand?
I mean, this is what I'm saying. We gonna cover 1 week and they gonna cover the next. I mean, I'm asking the question. All I need is
I
answer.
understand.
Yeah.
Chief and I.
Because like I said, if we can pay these guys time and a half with their salaries, we can hire another office chief now.
Thank you.
And since everybody talking about full coverage, okay.
Well,
But like I said, it is. Maybe I don't really understand all this figure, but it's something wrong. I don't know where it went wrong, who did it wrong, and where it started. But it's something wrong here.
If you hire another officer full-time, you also have
benefits.
benefits, insurance.
Well, what if we hired another officer part-time?
That might be an option. But,
Because, okay, it's just so many hours they can work. Okay, so what do we do? Everybody get their little 2% raise or whatever it is. Why couldn't all let this be cut out for this year offer for the guys that's really doing the work?
Thank you.
and if you look at the names of the employees, everyone.
I mean, that's what I said, the guys that's getting the little 2% they deserve it, because they work hard out there in that heat. I know who you're talking about.
Those guys aren't getting 2%.
Well, one of them is, so he's getting where you need to get. The one Shane was talking about.
No, one of them is getting 5.8, and the other one's getting 4.5.
Well, see, that's more than 2%.
It is.
So
That was to get them up to the rate.
I don't mind, I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. I'm not trying to take away anything from anybody. Even if it means us having a part-time officer. They can't work 7 days a week, 365 days a week. And if we could pay them what they really need to be paid, they wouldn't be having other jobs, other places.
That didn't start just this year, though, this year.
So I'm not trying to blame anybody for anything, I'm just asking a question.
Let's see, on your options from last week, I'm trying to.
And why does Tina need, not Tina, but why does Karen need a raise?
What'd you say, Mom? I'm sorry.
Huh?
What'd you say?
And why does Karen need a raise?
Well, there were no raises given out last year.
Nope,
Um,
I worked a long time without a raise.
I got 30
I have too.
I got 30 whole cents.
I mean,
As much as I wish, changing numbers from 5% raises, 2% raises to 4% raises, and we're not giving everyone a raise, as you can see,
That's true.
that's still not gonna correct the problem we've got with cash flow. If you look at the, no, there's some other- if you look at, income for the city, from 2021 to the proposed 2023 budget, 22-23 budget, you're not seeing any appreciable increase. And again, one of the issues that we face are higher prices on everything that we do. If you look at the cost estimates on there, you're seeing electricity, gasoline, and that's gonna continue to get worse.
I have a question, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
Your Honor. Here we are again, once again, in the budget, where last year I was cut 2 officers and a part-time, and a full-time secretary.
They live.
They money.
When I hired TJ, or back when I hired Colin, I came to the council and I told them that I would not fulfill the other position, that I would want to save money. And I asked specifically, do not cut it, in which everybody voted in, that they would not cut it. I'm not here for that. What I'm here for, I'm worried now. Because I was told I wasn't gonna lose that officer. Well, now we lost it. Now I gotta think about him, myself, and TJ. What's gonna happen next year when there's nobody else? There's no one to cut. You don't cut me, you don't cut TJ, you don't cut Felipe. We need to know this. Because if we don't have a job security, he's 20-something years old. He's gonna need to go look for something, somewhere. I understand all this stuff happened years ago, but somewhere we have to fix the problem and come to a conclusion on what we're gonna do. But y'all are taking everything from the PD and there's nothing else to take this time next year. The trucks. I mean, we can throw them little Warren Betty lights on our POVs, I guess. There's nothing else for the PD to give. Y'all took a lot from us last year. Taking this lot from us is gonna kill us this year.
Sir, we lost 2 people in the police department last year. We did not cut them, they left,
And the secretary.
and the secretary.
With all due respect though, your mayor, I did lose him. I wasn't able to fulfill him by y'all's rules. Option 4. Miss Mona sat right there and told me, because I asked her. So I'm not allowed to hire the 2 officers that I lost, and she said no. Not even the secretary. Correct? That's all I got, man.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Running the different models and looking at your water rates and sewer rates. And we reference the other townships around us that have a lower rate than we do. And they are considering raising the rates. These question, 10 of these minimum bills for Naples, Omaha, or city.
Those are current as of Tuesday. And that's
This
what
was prior to them determining that they're gonna raise increases.
Yeah. If
This
you
is
look-
as they now stand.
Calling Joyce Bench.
No.
Mobile.
No, Omaha is gonna increase theirs 3%. So right now, they're $70,
Okay.
and they're gonna increase theirs at 3%. Hugh Springs is at $55, that's including trash, no differently than ours, that's why I try to compare, and ours is based on residential only. They're increasing theirs 4%. Naples has already increased theirs. They increased theirs 3 months ago. They went to a flat rate of the $10 flat fee plus the $12.75 per thousand, which we're only at, I think we're at, I'll tell you, it's 3. Or the residential rates were at $5 per thousand within the city limits, and it's $7.50 per thousand outside the city limits. And they increased Naples increased theirs to $10 flat fee plus $12.75 per thousand. And it's gonna be up $4.50 per thousand for 2,000 to 10,000. And then anything over 10,000 is $5.50 per additional thousand over the 10,000. So they're significantly higher by the time you calculate theirs out. If you use over 10,000.
And council, you're gonna have to consider raising rates. And you may have to even consider raising taxes.
I do have a question. I realize everything has gone up. I mean, significantly with, everything. But it hadn't been that long ago that Officer Taylor was gone.
That was this year, April.
Yeah.
Like Calvin Jr.
And, yeah, and we were paying Officer Taylor out of 2 different funds. And we were paying his salary.
And you replace TJ with that almost the same salary.
Okay.
Oh, what's his name, Nelson leave?
Colin.
Great. When did, what's his name leave? The other officer we had from Gladewater. When did he leave?
Big Stephen?
Oh, I have no idea.
He left about 5.5 months ago.
Yeah, he's been gone. But we did replace it with TJ.
We were in financial situation even back then though, because I was holding checks just to get them paid. This is not new since I've been here. Devin had to hold checks as well.
I know.
We've been seeing.
We've been
We're
signing,
down for
We're not
years.
blaming you for
No,
it, but
I'm not
I said, I
blaming you.
know.
no, we've been
Because
signing,
this ain't the first year it's been in the red.
No,
It's
we're
not the
trending
first
down.
year it's been in the red.
me and Jerry been signing checks for a long time.
That's what I'm saying. It's not the first time we've been in the red.
Yeah, we've been signing checks for a long
But
time.
like I said, it seems strange that we losing all these people and we still ain't got no money.
Exactly, so where's the money going?
It's in every category
I can
on
show
It's all,
there.
it's in all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's
But
everywhere, cause everything went up and things broke down,
We
things have
have
been
had-
fixed, so we
Exactly.
understand all this.
We have had.
We know all
how
the
many
taxes
tires
is
we
going
go-
up, everything.
Let's see, Secretary.
We have had to replace tires on multiple vehicles this year. When you're talking $850 to $1,000 per vehicle. I can name 2 trucks in water and sewer that we've had to replace tires on. We've had to replace tires on our police, car. That adds up. We've had to replace batteries on vehicles. Doesn't seem like much, but whereas you could used to buy a battery for $89, now they're $186, just for a battery for a truck. We've had, equipment issues. We got a tractor that's still down because we don't have the money to pay to get it fixed. So the guys are having to use the lawnmowers to do mowing before it gets too tall. We've had lawnmowers that had to be repaired. When you're talking every $300 to $500 that you spend here to there that you didn't budget for, that just keeps going further back and back and back in the red. The vehicle payments, just like Randy alluded to the other night, even though it was very odd to me to purchase 4 vehicles at one time, it was done. Usually you buy vehicles every other year, like 2 a year. That way you don't have them depreciate now at the same time. But hindsight being 2020 now, it turned out good for that fact of these 4 vehicles being bought, because right now to buy that same vehicle, you're probably gonna pay $15,000 to $20,000 more. So that's a plus for us in that respect. But I've got about $10,000, $15,000 worth of bills right now in my office that I can't pay. Because I've gotta wait for the funding and the accounts to line up. There's not, even though with everything that comes in revenue wise, it's not been kept up with current times for years, based on the history that I've looked at. For years, we have gone backwards just a little bit more and more each year. And it's finally caught up with us that we don't, and it doesn't matter for what.
We have not raised taxes.
We have
or
not raised
water
taxes,
rates,
and we
sewer
have,
rates.
it is caught up with
And
us
as far as on the employees that we've had, even when we had a full staff of policemen, since I've been here, I had to hold checks to pay the policemen and the office people in water and sewer from one account to the other, because that revenue wasn't coming in. But we did have more revenue coming in with activities on the highways. We had more activities coming in with court. We had tickets coming in. There was a lot of activities until COVID hit. COVID put a stop to a lot of things to where that was a big hickey on our activities, because they didn't want you having contact with people.
We're not gonna get
COVID
any,
is just a pawn to be used as well as.
It's a
venom.
fact
Not
when
ineffectiveness.
people aren't going out on the road. It's a fact. We can't have money coming in when we're not going out in the chance of exposing somebody or getting our guys sick. So it's not a pawn when we are having to stay in either the office or stay doing administrative stuff, or have to pull vehicles over with a mask on or whatever.
well, it has caught up with us, because even before I was here, things were not taken care of. So we're catching the brunt of it, of having to fix things that weren't fixed in years past. So we're having to do some catch up.
So just raise your taxes. We done agreed on it.
Well, there's more to it than that. But the one area that I don't feel that should be cut is our police department. I'm sorry, I lay my life on the line.
No argument at all.
I agree with you, but we
But-
added other policemen, it's
Where are you going?
$39,000.
You're gonna have to make some hard decisions on how you correct more.
Yes, we're gonna have to cut something, we're gonna have to do something. If I need to stand on the street corner and
No.
wave a little flag, or stand out on the street corner with my tin
Well,
cup.
this calls for very decisive action, so you're gonna have to look at the numbers, put your thoughts out there, we run the model on it and look at it.
We have got to have another police officer. This town, we see our crime going up, and we've got more people coming up. We were safe for a while, we're not now. I live here, I don't want it to, fortunately, I live in a bubble. Not everybody does. And I
It's a
don't
course
want,
of action going forward, what do you want?
we gotta do something. Like I said, if I need to stand on the street corner with my little tin cup,
Make a motion for something, put it out there.
I'll hit the stripper pole again.
No.
Well, are we?
Hey, it brought in good money, you know, Miss June.
Excuse me. I'm gonna suggest we let the, go ahead. Perhaps you can-
Miss Tina,
Yes, sir.
was he a reserve officer when Kenneth was here? Mr. Felipe,
No.
he was getting paid?
yes,
So Kenneth is gone, you got that money, pay another officer?
well, we did.
No, we did.
We did,
Our
TJ.
TJ came in for just a few cents less per hour than Kenny was.
But we had 4 officers, right?
No,
And
at
then,
the time,
all right,
we did
Steve,
not.
we
No,
had,
we did not.
No,
so Steve, we had
Rathbun was
Rathburn.
gone for a long time.
We had Officer Anthony Moore.
Anthony's been gone for a while.
Well,
That
yeah,
was
but
their
no, but I was
choice.
just trying to understand
Yeah,
you.
that was
I
their
didn't know
choice.
if he was a reserve
No.
officer. Well, if Mr. Rathburn was still here as the sergeant or lieutenant, I think it was, I know he was.
He was not at the time that Felipe came on board.
Right, but if he was still here, he would still be getting paid. I don't know how many people, I know Miss Jerry Chisholm lives by me on Houston Street. Crime is very bad over there. If it's not welded down, even then it's iffy. They'll steal it. I know that, and like Miss Chisholm said, these officers can't work, all the time. They gotta take a break.
No, that's not
But-
that's gonna happen.
I think y'all could come together we voted for you. I know you're smart enough to do it.
I'm not a
And,
voted person.
And Miss Mona, me and her don't usually agree on budget, but I agree with her.
Travis, I totally agree with you, but where are we gonna come up with another $40,000?
All right,
When we're already in the
where's
red?
are y'all giving, at one of the meetings, y'all kept saying Mr. Shank, the waterworks guy needed 20% this, 20% that, 20% that. We've been living with potholes for,
I've trimmed those numbers even back, that 20% was based upon inflation.
right,
Those numbers have even been trimmed back at least
Yes.
twice since that conversation, based upon the true numbers that we're at even right now. I've trimmed as much as I can trim. Not to say that 2023, that the numbers are gonna be as high, but I suspect they're gonna be higher.
I understand, y'all know you got a hard position, but like she said and others, Miss Chisholm said, police is not a want, it's a need. Seriously, unless, there's some people can't have guns, like me. I depend on them for protection, even though I'm a meanie. But I can't own a gun. I can't just shoot somebody if they break into my house. I had to call the police. Because I was a little wild when I was younger. So I depend on these officers.
You're not telling me anything that I mean.
Well, I'm
you
speaking
and I,
to the
you're
people
talking,
that talk.
You're talking on that. I totally agree. I'm very strong and supportive of our PD, but
So 12% here, 15% there, and 5% pay raise. I understand people gotta have money to live and eat, but they really deserve it. I mean, I could go a few more years with a pothole, I've been doing it. But I'd rather have the police officers knowing they're out there, not just for me or this lady, but for all of y'all. I know, like she said, there's a bubble. If you go to Edgemont at nighttime, you're gonna hit gunfire. It's not fireworks. Miss Chisholm can tell you, she lives on the same street I do.
Travis, just for an example, to accommodate based upon to take care of our police.
Right,
We have, this last proposal has a significant increase that's above,
right.
what we normally get.
Well, yes, ma'am.
There was something mentioned at the last meeting about, a 5% increase for the chief and myself.
Right.
I told Randy, I said, I don't think that's fair for me right now, because I've got an employee
Well, that's good.
that's only going to go 2%. I
Right.
would take 2%.
Did,
But I
Mr.
put, I put a lot of hours in for free,
Right,
and so 2% don't even pay for my extra hours back and forth over here.
Right.
But I'm not complaining about that.
right.
No differently than Shane willing to give up his 2% if he was gonna get that,
Right.
so that he can
Oh,
get
I'm not
his
trying to
guys
blame
out there.
Mr. Shane or
Yeah.
any, I'm just, I just wondered,
During the time, Travis, let me interject something in here,
all right,
that we had people.
I'm done.
Okay. That we had people that were
Right.
leaving for one reason or the other.
right,
We were seeing the trends in the cash flow. So we talked our different departments, and the intent was, let's hold this off for right now. Let's see where these numbers are gonna go.
did y'all make a promise to the chief about not cutting with his officers? If y'all did, you need to keep that promise. Cause that's the first time I heard it. If y'all told
He
him,
called me in his office last week.
no, I meant what?
He said, oh, hear me for a moment.
Yes, sir.
Are you still favorable for me to get a fourth officer? And I said, yes. But we're going to have to look at the numbers and look at the budget so we can budget correctly for
Oh.
it. That model of the fourth man is not on there right now because I'm looking at worst case scenario.
No, I meant at a city council meeting, did the members of the city council at the time tell him they would not take away his officer? If he, is that what you were saying when you were speaking? And about normally, that they said they would not take one of your
I
officers from
think
you?
then,
We didn't vote on
we didn't vote on that.
We
The
didn't vote on
intent
that.
to hold off was to just look at the cash flow.
All right,
So, that being said,
If we look
we
at,
have come to a point, this is a point of critical mass. We
Yes.
haven't raised rates appreciably to any degree in years.
So-
Every year we've sit here and looked at the possibilities and purposely kept it down.
yeah, because the people on the council that lived on the lakeside did not want to raise taxes. Well, come to our side every now and then, we don't want it either, but we're still living poor, living in crime ridden part of Lone Star. We don't have a sunset from the lake.
Our tax
I'm not
rate.
saying that you worked your butt off for that, and I understand that, but,
if we raised our water and sewer
You
rates,
have models there, look at the different numbers, throw something out.
But we can't vote on it tonight.
Can't
no,
vote it tonight, you just make it a model.
and what were
That's
those,
what we're here for tonight.
What
Tonight
were
has
those-
to be precise.
what were those numbers, Tina, that you were looking at?
You've got them all identified there. They're gonna be broken down by residential, commercial, inside city limits and outside city limits, but it's gonna take a while before you see any improvement based upon those numbers because we're so far backwards. I mean, I haven't calculated based upon, Ms. Terry was out and I haven't calculated based upon our number of citizens being residential inside the city limits versus citizens outside the city limits, or commercial versus inside and outside. But even if we were to start increases tomorrow, you're gonna have a period of time before you actually see that improvement of income coming in. Because it's only gonna be a couple of dollars a household.
So the lines in yellow are the ones that we could go up to.
No, those like, you can go up to anything that's identified on that, those lists. Those are just summaries. The lines in yellows, like on the first page on the sewer rate,
Uh-huh.
that's just showing you at a 5,000 increment. 5,000 gallon increment. Oh, I wish I
Yeah,
could.
what's the highest gallons that most people in the city use? I mean, if you know offhand.
I don't know, Miss Jerry. I know that there's been some circumstances where people have had leaks and they've had 30 to 40,000 gallons. There's been circumstances to where, we've had some accounts at 70,000, but, they found out that they had a leak. You know, a standard. just to throw it out there to chew on, not necessarily anything to vote on, not trying to get off the budget too much, because this is kind of part of the budget that we need to think of. Something that's been kicked around, trying to figure out what would be the best for the city in the respect of not having too much of an impact on the citizens, but also to try to have some impact to help the city is, do you want to consider the fact of increasing your first 2,000 gallon rate, maybe $1, and then maybe include, increasing your percentage for your usage of above the the gallon rate to a percentage, 3%, 5% or whatever. And those are the types of things, I've run numbers on it, but to sit, and Ms. Karen was out, so I couldn't compare it to residential versus commercial, inside and outside city limits. Every couple $300 that we get is that much more money that we have, a couple $300 and pay another bill. It's not gonna be thousands upon thousands of dollars coming in every month. It's gonna be like everything else. It's gonna build up to where you eventually see an increase of some type of revenue coming in over a period of time. I mean, you can't stick the citizens with the blunt of everything all the time, trying to be considerate of them. But the city is behind on what they need to be charging. If we were to have a big hiccup in our equipment right now at the water and sewer plant, how are we gonna pay for it?
Well, Naples went up the flat $10.
Yeah, but if you'll look, it's $12.75 per thousand after that, and it goes up another $4.50 per thousand after the rate of 2,000 to 10,000. So you're talking $10 plus another $12.75, and if they go above 10,000, it's another $5.50.
$5.50 for each gallon.
Per thousand gallon. Something else, and I'm not sure as to the logic on it. I don't know why we stop at the sewer max at 10,000 gallons. Is it something worth looking at? And I apologize for the calculation on the sewer rate on the first and third page, but is it something to consider calculating based on the actual usage, the gallon usage? It was mentioned something about when you're using water, if you use over 10,000 gallons of water, like if you're filling the pool, you shouldn't have to pay basically an increased sewer rate because you're filling the pool, and I understand that. That may be the logic behind it, so I've asked questions because there's nothing documented on all, if there's documentation, I hadn't found it yet because there's so much documentation that I'm going through. That's why I want to go ahead and give y'all these sheets tonight. Like I said, I'll try to get y'all a revised copy on that page 1 and 3. I apologize, I didn't realize those rolled off, but if we're going to just a 10,000 gallon on the sewer rates anyway, it's irregardless of the 11,000 and above, it's gonna be a moot point. But at least it gives you an idea of what the rates could be as far as on water, inside the city limits, outside the city limits, commercial versus non-commercial. And there's nothing magical between the 5, 8, and 10%. If y'all wanna go 3%, I can put another, I'm just trying to throw numbers out there for y'all to consider. And for a current time, like right now, this Band-Aid's not gonna fix our issue.
No, not immediately. But, and I think we ought to go up on our taxes as well. So, let's
I
talk
would be
about
interested to see if we could run the numbers as to what the average rate is in the city for commercial and residential. So we could compare, as an example, we could use the water rate from Naples.
That's what I'm
And run
thinking.
a comparison on that, so, okay, if we did that based on our usage, is that gonna help us? I mean, how much is that gonna help us out?
Yep. I think using the Naples,
And, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that's what we need to go with, but I would like to see those numbers extrapolated out so we can figure out what's going on, because we're all aware that we're gonna have to raise some stuff.
Yeah, Naples was the least favorite one of those calculations that I saw that I liked. Naples,
oh, that's the least favorite. Which one did you like best?
because you've got a $10 flat fee plus another $12.75 for, per thousand, I'm looking at how this typed up, Jamie typed it up for me. If you go above the 2,000 to 10,000, it's $5.50. You're adding so many steps there. It's almost easier to say, you start up to 2,000, you get paid a basic fee right now for Lone Star, $58.76, it's in your water and everything. I think your water, sewage, and trash is 58 cents. I can't remember what the water is gonna be. For within the city limits, for residential, your first 2,000 gallons is $23.
For
For residents within the city limits.
For us?
For water, yes,
23, you said,
$23.
for the first, how many, 2,000?
First 2,000. And that's identified on your spread, your sheet. It tells you on there, in the water. Inside city limits, it tells you first 2,000 is $23, and then in the orange, it says $5 for every additional 1,000 gallons after that. That's residential. If you look at commercial, it's 34, excuse me. Inside the city limits, it's $25, and it goes up another $8.50 for every 1,000 after that. Then you go to your, outside the city limits, you've got $34.50 for the first 2,000 and $7.50 for every additional 1,000 after that. Which, that, something that we're gonna have to consider on that as well with, Northeast Texas Municipal Water District, doubling our price for water outside the city limits. We're definitely gonna have to increase that one for anything that, whether it be residential or commercial outside the city limits, it's gonna have to be increased significantly because they've doubled that price.
Well, not only that, but Randy and I talked about this, about the fact that since they're putting that in and they're not, evidently, and I'm not saying they're not going to, but they haven't given us any indication that they're willing to loop those lines in, which means we're gonna have to flush them more often.
Well, I'm not talking about that location here, I'm talking in
But
general.
I'm just using that as an
Yeah.
example. So that law, I mean, that water rate is gonna have to be way up there because we're gonna be, somebody's gonna pay for that.
You can't differentiate in one location versus the other.
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying is, if we're gonna keep, if we have a system out there now that's, let's just face it, it's antiquated in the fact that we don't have loops, we don't have things to prevent that, and we have to flush, we have to. Okay, so we have to address those, that many gallons of water, however much it is, that has to be addressed also, because we're wasting that water.
Well, they flush it every day now
Okay,
at the rate that we pay Northeast Texas now. 24/7. So, in the event that all this occurs, whether they have 1, 2, 3 houses or whatever, goes up there for the fact that they're dead end and not looped, it would be no different than that. The only thing is we have to flush prior to that valve that goes on the increased rate where we're getting metered off of. We have to flush prior to that, so therefore it's not gonna be any different than we do later. If we wait and flush after that meter, then you're paying that double price. So Shane and I have already talked about that on the flushing side of it. And we have to be consistent with the rate, so we cannot increase the rate out there just because of that versus any other.
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, we just need to make sure we're addressing everything, because that's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water now.
Yeah, I know, I understand that, I'm not disagreeing with that. But that's just one of those things. The other thing is, and I'll just say it, for years, we've been trying to put into effect some things that would bring in some income through ordinances and stuff like that. And there's a lot of that stuff that hasn't been done yet. Okay, nobody's fault. It may have just been caught up in the pile of stuff that's this high. Maybe it hasn't gone to the attorney yet. Maybe it hasn't done that. And we collectively have to do a better job on that to make sure that if it's approved through council, it gets there, it gets done, it gets back, it gets voted in, and it gets put into place. Now, the issue you come into is the one we've been talking about for 8 months now, the enforcement of that. Okay, so but that's a completely different issue we need to deal with. But as far as some of the stuff that's been proposed, there's probably $10,000-$15,000 out there that we could have already obtained this year that we didn't do because we haven't followed up on everything like we should have. And that's not your fault, that's not anybody's fault. I'm just saying, we have to do a better job of that. So you're talking $10,000-$15,000 is not much, but guess what? It helps offset the cost of another officer, potentially.
Still be about 20,000.
I understand that. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying, you just said it out of your mouth. I'll go, every nickel counts. I've been saying that for 3 years. It doesn't matter what you do, every nickel counts. Okay? It's like when you got rid of a $10 pet fee that I was glad to pay because I have pets. Why did we get rid of that? Oh, nobody pays it anyway. Well, it wasn't right to get rid of it because of that. It was because nobody enforced it. That's what the issue was. So, just things like that. You're talking $5, $10 here, $5, $10 there. You're not gonna make up what you have to make up on the budget now, but guess what? If we'd been doing that for 10 years and it'd been enforced like it should have, you might be another $15,000, $20,000 closer to matching the budget than what you do now. So I agree with what everybody's saying in the fact that this goes way back. It's not us. It started way back, kind of like the roads. You know, if they had a thought 40 years ago that they were gonna have an issue with roads, and they had taken an initiative back then to do a contingency plan or put back money to fix the roads, guess what? We wouldn't have the roads like we have now. But that's immaterial. Where we're at now, we gotta figure it out. You know? And our issue is you're gonna have to bring in more income. I keep saying it all the time. Why? And I'm not counting my horn, I'm not saying anything else, but I'm just saying, we have to keep beating our brains out to try to get businesses to come in here. And it gets harder and harder and harder because you're competing with larger cities who have a lot more dollars to expend on that kind of stuff than we do. But that doesn't mean we could try. We have to do that to try to help to bring income into this town. And that's just one way, but the stuff we can do here, we're not, to do what we gotta do now, we're not gonna nickel and dime it this year. It ain't gonna happen. It's probably gonna take my conservative estimate 3 to 5 years to try to dig us out of something like this. But where do we start?
Miss Tina, which one of these examples did you like better than the Naples? What do you think was a better
I
example?
just thought that Naples was a little bit too many steps in as our system is the only reason why I said that.
Okay.
I think we could cut those multiple steps down, and that's just my opinion.
And just-
If it staggers on multiple steps like that, that's what we'll have to build that into the system.
So did one look better to you than the others?
No, it's just whatever y'all, it's trying to take into consideration the citizens on trying not to impact them too hard, but also trying to get some additional revenue in. It's however you want, I mean, do you want to put a small price on the base fee and then put a small increase on the per 1,000 gallons usage? Or do you want to try to put it all toward the usage? You know, that's something that y'all need to think about, in my opinion, because you've got some people that are gonna pay the minimum fee every month, people that have weekend homes here or whatever. If you increase that minimum base fee $1, that's $1 more for that person that's gonna have to pay. It's not gonna break them. But just like I told Randy, we've got people right now that can't pay their water bill as it is now. And you know, and you hate to continuously beat people up on stuff like that because, you know, they can't afford it as it is now, but the city can't survive without some other type of revenue coming in.
When the sewage goes up, when the water rates goes up?
And those two separate.
No, but that's something to consider.
But I mean, it's included in our bills.
It is.
It is.
You've got a breakdown on water, sewer,
And trash.
garbage, and then
Oh,
there's
I
a
like
tax
that
on garbage.
When the water went up a little bit before, the sewage went up a little bit too. No, nobody might not pay no attention, but it did.
I talked to Karen today and we did not go in the conversation of sewage, we were looking more toward water, but I did question her about why there was a 10,000 gallon and, max that was done on sewer. And like I said, the only thing that's been mentioned to me was the fact, because like if you had a pool, if you use more water to fill that pool, you need to be paying more toward the water side of it, and apparently that ties in with the water usage with the sewer too. Not being penalized to pay more for sewer when you're filling the pool is the reason why, what I was told is why there's a 10,000 gallon max. That's all before my time. I don't know, but,
I'm just asking, cause I know the sewage that went up with the water, and the water bill went up a little bit before, the sewage did too.
okay.
In lieu of where we are, we're not being popular, but in lieu of where we are, the negative cash flow we're looking at, may I suggest, if you're not voting on anything tonight, that you come up with a very aggressive number straight across the board. And let her run the numbers. And find out where you are. We're gonna have to make some very hard decisions. We're gonna have to call this thing tonight, because we're running out of time. I mean, I would prefer that everything is free, but it's not.
No,
And I prepared 7 different options to choose from versus the 4 that we had last year. Trying to give as many variables, including an officer. The first 4 or 5 were without the officer because it was not mentioned. Okay, 2 with an officer, and with the raises that was suggested for some of the employees. In those options, you're gonna have to come up with around $40,000 more to have that officer that we talked about. That's just the base salary, 32,000, I think, you got the base salary, then you gotta put about another 9,000 on there with insurances and benefits and stuff, between 8,000 and 9,000.
so on the water, would a 3%? No? What were you thinking, Randy?
Again, I would be very aggressive on it. You're not voting on anything
No.
tonight. Let her run the numbers on it. You're gonna have you can always dial it back.
Sure.
But let's get something concrete, definitive, that we can look at, because we can discuss this thing all
Till
night
the
long
cows come home.
and not get anything done.
Right.
And it's the burden of sitting on council.
Mm-hmm.
You may not be popular for a while,
Well,
but
I'm
it
not
is
very
what it
popular
is.
either. I'm not very popular anyway.
I would suggest, though, in my opinion, whatever is decided on, it be done in all avenues, whether it be residential inside the city limits and outside,
Uh-huh.
and whether it be commercial inside or outside.
All across the
Because
board.
nobody should be hit harder than the
Right.
other.
Make
It's
it
not gonna
across
be
the
maybe
board.
$1 or $2 more.
Mhm.
Even if you went, just as an example, if you went 8% on just the gallons of water alone, you went for your first 2,000, it's gonna go from $21, and it'll be increased to $22.68. That'd be $1.68 for each, you know. And then for those people that use more gallons above the, above the 2,000, say if they use 3,000, you're gonna add, another $1.94, that's sewer, sorry.
I like I like numbers like 10%.
It's just a number to throw out there.
Yeah, I say 10%.
Well, we can't vote on it or
I
anything
know.
tonight, but again,
Let's start with that number. We can always come off of it.
when.
I would say we're going for 10 and 8.
Yeah.
Because-
In comparison to the other cities, they went 3 and
That's
4,
fine.
but we've gone several years
Without anything.
without the increase.
But the amounts, correct me if I'm wrong, from what I understood you to say, their minimum bill that you have on this list, is that before or after their proposed rates for this year?
The minimum bill that's identified on those,
Yeah, like Naples and identifies 6362 includes trash. Is that after the raise this
it
year?
tells
they've
you,
already
it
put?
tells you that's increased 3 months ago.
Okay, so, Omaha, they haven't yet, but they're gonna increase it by 3%.
3%. And they're at 70,
Or city,
we're
we
at
don't have the
58.
data on it, New Springs to increase by
Or
4%.
city, we did at 6294.
So they've already raised it,
Mhm.
because it didn't sell right inside, that's why I'm
Well,
asking.
she didn't ask on that
Okay,
one as
that's
far as the rate, but that's where, even still at that, they're still higher than where we're at.
Well, so, and even, so if you just take the round figures and you say 5876, you multiply that times 10%, that gives you roughly rounding it up a $6 raise of 64. You're still well within the range of the other cities that are charging
Yeah, so
water. So, I mean, that's just right off the top of your head looking at it. I'm sure we'll go into a lot more depth than that, but,
Well,
as
his
long as
rates
you keep it
go
within
up.
the range of those cities, you shouldn't, I mean, you're gonna, it doesn't matter if you raise a penny, you're gonna have to complain. I mean, let's face it, I don't like it, mine to go up, I'll be honest with you, I know, I hate it. But if it's gotta happen to make the city survive, do it. I'll figure out a way to save $5. I'll drink 3 less of these a day or whatever to save about,
drink water.
You know, one less pack of cigarettes for somebody, that's $10, $15. So
They can stay
don't
away
tell
from-
me you can't do it. Tell
They
me
can stay
what
away from
you
the
can do to
sweepstakes.
get it done. So,
Then you are gonna have to put that plumb line out there. What is it gonna be?
Work those two numbers, 8 to 10%.
Well, you got them worked, based upon the per gallons.
Okay.
You got them right there in front of you.
Okay.
The only thing that we don't have to work as far as I'm showing you a projection is that value multiplied by so many citizens, whether it be residential or commercial, as a, give you kind of a roughly monthly income. And even if you, what do we have, like 700 citizens that pay water bills? I don't know based on the numbers, how many of those are commercials or how many of them are residential, inside or outside the city limits. But say if you had 600 of those or 650 of those that were within residential's inside the city limits, you could multiply that times whatever the rate increase is per month. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be an overnight
no,
fix.
this didn't happen overnight to get to where we're at.
No. But we also need to think about raising taxes.
You had a major infrastructure improvement that you were forced to make.
Yes.
And that's not a criticism against any of the people who sat around these tables prior to us getting out. I don't know what they were up against or what kind of issues they had, but that had to be done. Dangerfield is looking at the same thing. They're looking at over a $6 million project. They can keep their rates fairly low right now, but when they initiate that and those payments come in, it's gonna change them as well. The other two municipalities are probably already looking at it because all these towns are about the same age. So, again, I'm gonna say I would be very, very aggressive with it. You don't have any choice.
From what I have been able to retrieve historically, if you guys, or if whoever, if Stormer was mayor at the time, back in 08, 09, 10,
Oh,
whenever
yeah.
that was being talked about as far as on the USDA project, money should have been started being put back. then.
Absolutely.
Money started getting put back based upon what I could find, and I may be wrong on the exact time period, but I think it's between 2018 and 19.
It was back when Nick was mayor.
I think there was $14,000 put back on a $3 million loan. That's, don't even pay the interest for a week. You know, I mean, we should have had, before that project went into place to offset the monthly payments that we're having to make, there should have at least been $200,000 or $300,000 put back at a minimum. And as a good as a good foundation, it just didn't happen, because I'm sure they were the same boat we're at now, they didn't have money.
So here we sit. After all the talking is done and the exchanges go back and forth, we're still gonna be sitting here looking at this.
So what do we have to do in order to raise the taxes? It has to go before a vote, is that correct?
That is correct. You have 3 levels that you can raise it to or choose. That doesn't require
Right,
a voter decision.
And what we
If you go
chose-
higher than that,
right, we chose to not do that,
if you have to go higher than that, then they vote on it.
right. So, that's what we need to do, we need to go higher than that, so we will have a vote.
Well, we've already provided those numbers.
Right, so we can't, can we not change that?
You haven't voted that right
Yeah,
now.
we haven't voted then, but we've already provided to them, they've got it posted on the website.
Yeah.
That's correct, too. That's correct.
So we can change it.
I don't think so.
Well, we can't.
Not if we,
Not as now posted.
Oh,
I would have to
The
check.
tax rate would be next year.
it'll be next year.
We'll check it and confirm that that's the case.
It may be, and Cody, you're probably sharper on this than I am. It may be that we go with this rate now up until May, and maybe they, if that's something that the citizens want to do, consider it and then implement it in October 1 of next year, or do you know on that?
I'm not sure, I've talked to someone about it a couple of times, but I don't really.
That's something that I would have to dig into and probably get with county. Because we gave them a proposal so that they could get a baseline and go forward and post it on their websites and stuff.
You have the projected sales tax going down from 147,000 to 125,000. What's that based on?
Which account, you talking about general fund?
Yes, page 1 of 6.
Which account?
Just the 21-22 budget to the 22-23 budget sales tax income.
Talking about line item 4,200, 42,000?
Yes, so the first to the second column.
I based those numbers on where we're at as of today and what the projection would be coming in.
Is that based on an average of the months we've already completed or just times 12? Because, sales tax should be not really spread out that well over 12 months.
It should not be what?
Spread out that well over 12 months, but I'm looking, it went, because sales tax are not symmetrical, month to
Correct.
month, really.
Correct.
And that's based on the city collecting 0.75% to the general fund and sales tax, right?
I'm sorry, I was trying to get,
The state takes 6.5% of the sales tax,
right.
the county 0.5%, and city 0.75%. And that's based on projected 1.7 million in sales, I suppose. The 125,000 value.
The sales tax that's been coming in, I looked at the real numbers and tried to go based upon the projection for the next 2 months. And then also used, the formulas that was in there as far as spreading it out and it's just a rough estimate based upon our historical numbers that were coming in, and then also based upon the calculation and where we're at right now.
So when you were looking at sales tax, you compared it to like a previous January and a previous February and a previous March?
Yeah, and I actually looked at the individual values too. I looked and broke down some, and looked, do we have X amount of thousands coming in this month, compared it out, and as well as I know, you're not gonna get the same amount every month. And so it's just a rough estimate to try to get, to go as a baseline. And the numbers that were there from last year were the numbers from the previous year as just a projection, because there wasn't as much of a change. So when we did this last year, I didn't have a clue on how to go about making those modifications on these numbers, because I'm still drilling down in the numbers and the spreadsheets and stuff. And so we used those numbers from the previous years as a baseline to build off of, and then we just updated from there. This year, I've gone in and was comparing all the numbers historically and also based upon our numbers that we had currently as of this year.
Because the 125,000 would be 0.75% of 1.7 million in sales.
As of right now, as of today's date in sales tax, we have taken in 116,000. And we had, let's see. Based upon that number, we are getting anywhere from 10.5 up to the max of 12.8 for the city's portion.
And what happens to that is notoriously over time, most cities' sales tax increases in November, December because of Christmas. We don't have anything to do that. So notoriously over the last 2-3 years, because I have the figures at home, we have gone down in sales tax for those months, which in addition to not having a lot of businesses anyway, that's what causes us to have reduced revenue, which to me puts more emphasis on the fact that we have to do something to figure out a way to get some business in here.
Well, based upon.
That's convinced me, I pounded on it.
Based upon the 9-month value that y'all were looking at on your paper, at 9 months is 103,000. Like I said, until 7-11 is the last update on this. I've got some numbers to update now, but you're only gonna add another $10,000-$12,000 to it. So instead of over, and then we may get another 20,000. So at the most, maybe 130,000, and I put it in at 125,000 because of it being income coming in. I would rather be on the shy side of income coming in instead of over projecting it and over inflating it, because I don't want us to depend upon something that we may not get. But based upon the numbers here, at 116,000 now, if you add 20,000 to that, you're gonna be at 136,000. So that number might be inflated by 10,000. But I don't know that if we're gonna get a $10,000 check next month, or $10,000 or 12,000. I don't know. So, I mean, if we increase that by 10,000, that would help, yeah. But if we don't get that 10,000 more or 20,000 more.
Well, even at the 125 value, you're looking at 0.75% of $1.7 million in sales going to the general fund, and 83,333 going to the EDC.
No, that's wrong. You don't have that much going to the EDC. You might average, and I've got the numbers at home if you want to see them, right around 5,800 a month. We take in less than 61,000 a year in the EDC from sales tax money. I can show you the figures. So 70,000 is way up. I wish. I'd give anything if we had that money to go out and try to attract business with. But we don't get that much, I can tell you that right now. Most of our months run 55 to 59.
You run 55 to 62.
Yeah, 62 sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
It
Because
depends
I'm
on
looking
if
at the breakdown right
it's
here.
cyclical, because if it's summer and Rocky Point's open and we get more, then it goes up. If they're not open, then it goes down, you
Well,
know?
prime example right here, in July, our total sales tax coming in was 18,635, 12,423 went for the city, and then 6,200 went to the economic.
That's exactly right.
3/4 or 1/2? 3/4 to the city, 1/2 to the EDC. And so you can actually, the maximum sales tax allowed by the state is 8.25, regardless of where you send that money. The city is currently collecting 3/4% sales tax towards the general fund. They could be collecting 1.25, so 1.25% towards the general fund without raising any taxes, which would generate $83,000 more in revenue based on the $125,000 value.
Can you explain how that could be the 1.25? And how, where would we get that extra raise taxes as far as on sales tax?
Right.
Can we tell you what his thought process is? You were
I
the
can,
EDC.
no, I'll explain my thought process. I'll explain it at the next meeting. I'll have it on the agenda and try to explain it very thoroughly there.
We're talking about taxes right now.
Right,
Is it, okay, I know the state's 8.25.
right. So
And-
subtract the maximum allowed total is 8.25.
Right,
The state of Texas takes 6.5.
right,
So subtract 6.5.
right,
The county takes 0.5%. Subtract 0.5%.
right.
EDC takes 0.5%. Subtract that. You're left with 3/4. That's what the city takes. Okay? Right?
Yep.
So, 3/4 of 1.7 million is where you would get 125,000, which is your projected sales tax revenue for the general fund. All right? So 3/4 of 1.7 million is your 125,000. 1/2 of 1.7 million is 83,000. So there's 83,000 right there in the next year. Plus an injection of 300,000 within a couple of months. Without raising anyone's taxes at all. Furthermore, it's double work for many of our employees.
It's what?
Double work to have 2 sets of meetings, 2 sets of agendas, 2 sets of legal requirements to keep up with.
What he's saying is to abolish the EDC.
You're not paid extra to attend those meetings and,
I don't get paid extra to attend this one either.
Right.
Or any of the other ones, but that's a choice that I made when I took the job. So, but we voted on, I mean, that was on the ballot this last year. As far as on the EDC, the citizens voted to keep it in play. The only way we could get rid of it is if it was voted on again.
you can do that by petition, but the council can also dissolve it at their own initiative.
Well,
That's 2 ways that can be dissolved, and if you did it that way, it would be quickly, that would go into the general fund.
I don't think it can just go in the general fund though.
It does, if you dissolve an EDC, the balance goes into the general fund by law, there's no other option.
Okay, it was my understanding though, it had to be utilized for certain functions as if the EDC was using it.
If it
As far as
has
on the
debt
business.
obligations, it has to meet those debt obligations, but otherwise it goes into the general fund.
I mean, it has debt obligations.
Anyways, that's as far as I think we can take the discussion in a budget workshop. But I'd like to put it on the agenda in the next meeting, and we can discuss it more thoroughly.
So how would you like it on the agenda?
Dissolving the EDC.
I think it would behoove you if you went ahead and got your petitions, because I don't think the council will vote it down.
Like I said, we
Everything needs to be considered because we're at a point of critical mass, and I'm not saying do anything, but I'm saying don't close yourself off to anything that might be beneficial to the city, and then you have to make the argument on what is more beneficial to the city. If you don't, irregardless, even if you dissolve that, you're still looking at some increases you're gonna have to make.
Mhm. And one of those is raising the sales tax. Or raising our taxes.
Oh, and I've said all along, my preference would be to make the sales tax 7 3/4. But what I've just said now, address the possibility of not lowering the sales tax to 7 3/4, but actually keeping it the same, which raises the amount of it which goes to the general fund. So it's a tax raise in regards to the general fund, but not to any member of the public. That already feels like a compromise position for me.
Okay, again, we've had multiple meetings and we have no decisions. I don't know what we can really decide upon, but I can't tweak these numbers anymore.
No, you've done all you can.
You know, I've had discussions with multiple people on why we've done things the way we did in the past, because I wasn't here in the past, I'm here now, to where the city is basically, we're caught up on what wasn't done in the past for years, because probably the same situation, we didn't have the money in the past to do it, but we've gotta do something different. And even if when the EDC was dissolved years ago, there were still financial problems, based upon the numbers.
Yeah, it
So, I
was.
mean,
And there was some controversy where that money went.
I don't know, I wasn't here, so
Wasn't here,
all I
Mr.
can say is from what I'm here, I mean, looking historically, we've been trending down from the past 3 to 4 years, and our trend downward is now in the ditch. We gotta figure a way out of it, it's not gonna happen overnight. Our biggest hiccup is not having a cushion for the USDA before we signed that agreement for that product, or for that particular, project to be done. We didn't have enough of cushion on that to pad it through for slower months, but. Yep.
And this is not your responsibility to fix this is our responsibility to fix this. And I'm just saying that don't feel the pressure there.
I can't,
I know.
I can't do something when I have nothing to do with
I
it.
know. We can't print money.
I mean, you and I talked about it last year, numbers that were looking down and numbers that were in red, based upon reports last year.
Right.
19 and 20, $86,000 in the red. You can't continuously, and for 2021 to have that 394, that is not because we were actually in the black that much money. That is because we had that $273,000 CDBG grant that came in for that fire truck, and, you know, and those other grants that come in.
Okay, sir.
When you're discussing the sewage capped at 10,000, you mentioned it could be pools, it could also be watering yards, but I would suggest that people also watering their gardens, raising food for the family. I would suggest you not
Not increasing.
unlock that cap.
And that was all I was asked.
You can only pee so much,
Right.
and that 10,000 is assuming that you're consuming water.
And
If
that's
you're
what I
consuming more
understand.
than 10,000 gallons of water, it's not going down your throat.
People are able to pay or request and pay for a meter on their sewage. Is that possible? Are people able to,
I don't know on that. I don't know how that works in the sewage.
like if people have a sprinkler system, they can, I think I've heard that they could request where they were not paying sewage on a sprinkler. No?
you would need a separate water meter, which is how it was when I was near Frisco. We had 2 water lines, 2 different meters. If you watered your yard, you used non-potable water. If you, for your house, potable water. And you paid a different rate for those.
Now, and when I was saying about the 10,000, I did not know why there was a peak, and that's what I was talking to Ms. Karen about today, and I've also talked to Shane, and that's where they made the suggestion as far as on the watering
Right.
of the yards and
I'm
also
just
the
bringing up
field.
other
Yeah.
points to that,
Yeah.
it's likely people watering their gardens
Right.
just to survive.
I was just asking a curiosity question on it because it was kind of odd. You had a 10,000 cap on sewer, but yet your water usage, and when it being explained to me in that respect, you know, I understand why they did it. And when I made a reference to the fact that we want to change that, I mean, if that's been suitable for however many years, I'm just trying to throw out other options to think about.
We're in a serious situation here, a very serious situation with our finances, and I understand that.
You know, someone made a comment about the raises and stuff. Even with the little raises that were projected.
That's not gonna pay a
It's
salary.
$10,000.
That's not gonna pay a salary.
It's not. And if you look over on the far right-hand side, it's a breakdown telling you of the increase of what every person is going to get with their little.
Yeah, it's not gonna
tiny-
pay a salary. In today's climate, nobody wants to be an officer.
That's true.
So all the schools that have closed, not all of them, but many of them have closed, so we don't have the option of using reserve officers like we did in the past. There was a time we had 10 at one time, because everybody said, you've got 10 police officers over there. No, we had 10 reserves, so we weren't having to pay them.
If I was a policeman, I wouldn't want to be a reserve because I would want to get paid. You know, if I'm going to jeopardize my safety or potentially
So we
my life, I
had
want to
had
get paid.
plenty of reserve officers. We don't have that luxury any longer to use reserve officers, because there's not any.
I know Jack Martin's gonna lose 2 more and he doesn't have any job takers for those. I just, that's
Yeah,
how
I
the
think-
combat is from, I got it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Felipe. Didn't Northeast Texas, didn't they close their school?
I don't
They
think
did.
so.
They did.
Did they?
They outsourced it to Texarkana or something.
Yeah,
They basically sold it off because
there weren't anybody, the classes were low.
it was actually bad management in other parts, and they sort of cannibalized that department, believe it or not.
Well, but it's no longer, and it used to have full classes.
Which, you talking about Mount Pleasant?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
I think they have something there now, but it's run by Kilgore or some other school.
well, it's Kilgore's running it. They have it at Kilgore now.
The schools in Kilgore property used to graduate about 30 to 35 officers per year, and I think last year they graduated 6.
6.
So you're
Yeah.
talking about just the police academy?
The police
Okay, I
academy.
thought you meant the whole school.
No,
because
the
I'm
police
like-
academy. No, the police academy.
Okay,
He used to have 20 and 30 students per year.
Okay.
So I know, I'm preaching, I'm on my soap opera.
Figured out.
We have got to have police coverage. We have to. I don't know what we're gonna have to do. I don't know what we can do. I don't know where we can go with it. I don't know what we have to do. I don't know what we can cut. I don't know. But we cannot let our citizens in Edgemont feel threatened. What do we do? You're safe. I'm safe. Rudy's safe. But when is it gonna go across the other road, other side?
I would agree. So, how do you propose we?
I can't
Play
poop.
additional
I
cash.
can't poop
No,
money.
no. But Tina and I through the week,
I know y'all,
run these different scenarios at different rates
I know.
and give you some options to look at.
and I don't know how we're gonna do it, but I can lay my head down at night and feel safe. So what do we do for our other residents?
like right now, you're showing in general fund alone, -20,282. you add another 40,000 on top of that, yeah, around another 42,000, that's gonna be another 60-something thousand.
Well, okay, if we had a part-time police officer, would that take the heat off?
Are you asking me that?
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am.
So we wouldn't have to pay benefits.
Okay. Even at that, you're still in the red, so what are we gonna do about that?
I guess I'm gonna have to go to my savings account and give you my 401k.
That's, and we have to be decisive. And this is not an enjoyable thing to do.
No.
In a previous conversation I
Hey,
had with someone here at this table one day, they asked me what I thought about raising taxes. And I said, we have a disproportionate part of our population
yeah,
on government leave, people who are retired.
yeah,
When this bill shut down,
yeah.
20% of the population of this town left and ran in 4 different directions to get
Right.
out of here. So
And
here
then-
we sit.
Yeah, and then I had someone post on Facebook about my road getting paid by the city. Well, guess what? I paid for part of my road getting paid.
Okay, let's back away, let's go back and look at the budget.
Yeah,
That's not
Yeah,
applicable
yeah.
here.
yeah, well, I paid for it.
Okay. Now we're going to figure out how to pay for the rest of the
Yeah.
stuff.
So, I don't know what we can, I know Tina said she cut some of the things that Shane asked for, you know, and some of the 20%, she cut them down.
I did.
Well,
And just like y'all were talking about the 5% for me and Chief, I opt to give out 3%.
I'm trying, buddy.
If you wish. We'll run a model
Yes,
on
ma'am.
the highest rates out here, just to give you a baseline to look at. You'll vote on it and approve it or disapprove it. But you need more clarity, I think, than you have right now.
I know.
I don't mind being aggressive with it. That doesn't bother me any. You do what you have to do. And you guys can determine what you want to do when you vote.
I mean, numbers don't lie. They simply don't.
It is what it is.
I mean, they don't lie. And, you know, Cody's all for, you know, abolishing the EDC and putting that money back in the general fund. I'm totally against that because,
Everybody's one vote for opinion.
well, because there are some very good projects on the horizon for that money. He's not aware of some of them and he could care less about them.
I think we're just running numbers, looking for answers, trying to quantify what we can and cannot do. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think you said we should go ahead and call the meeting for the night, so we have time to do our homework. Didn't you say that earlier?
How much more homework do we need to do? I'm so tired of.
I know you guys, we going home.
I can only milk numbers so
I'll tell you what
much.
I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll go up there with her tomorrow. We're gonna run off a scenario. I'm gonna choose the maximum numbers. That's what I'm gonna do. You guys can look at it. You're gonna have to vote on it next Monday. That's where we are.
When you're saying max numbers, what are you talking about?
The highest rates,
As far as on water and sewer?
yes.
Okay.
And we'll come up with what's on tax too. Just have it out there for you. This is what it takes for us to break even.
Go ahead. I mean, you talking to me?
Is that
It's acceptable.
acceptable?
Hang on. Hang on.
It's just a baseline, that's all it is.
I make motion to adjourn.
There we go. My second.
All in favor, say aye. Meeting is adjourned.